Harriet, it's not just the Tories who have to be worried. Mr Farage is after Labour seats as well. And I think the number now was they came second in 89 seats to Labour.
Going to turn something around, you have to do the hard yards up front. Don't look at a tough decision and then leave it for a year or two. So we're doing the tough stuff.
How worried should the party be about the threat, or the challenge, I should say, from Farage?
I think today is an answer to that question in a way, because here we are 10 days past the mayoral election.
Have you ever felt like politicians are speaking a different language? You're not alone, as Labour MP Andy Burnham defends his party's immigration stance. Something doesn't add up. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. We're about to decode the political doublespeak and reveal what's really happening behind closed doors. The answers might shock you and change how you view British politics forever. In a bold move that's shaking up British politics, Reform UK has launched the first ever AI-generated party political broadcast. This isn't your granddad's campaign ad. It's a slick movie trailer style production that takes aim at Labour's first 100 days in office. And let me tell you, it doesn't pull any punches. The broadcast, aptly titled Labour's Britain, paints a grim picture of life under Keir Starmer's leadership. It's a dystopian vision filled with shivering grandparents struggling without winter fuel allowance and illegal migrants overwhelming the system. Reform UK isn't just criticizing Labour, they're creating a cinematic universe of political failure. But here's where it gets interesting. This whole production was created using rudimentary AI technology. We're talking about content that a single person could whip up using software like Midjourney. It's quick, it's accessible, and it's changing the game of political messaging.
Well, I think people should be very concerned about reform, because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy, because they are offering easy answers.
Going to turn something around, you have to do the hard yards up front. Don't look at a tough decision and then leave it for a year or two. So we're doing the tough stuff.
But I think the shadow minister who you had on was really in denial about the situation.
The public's reaction has been as divided as a hung parliament. Some viewers are eating it up, calling it refreshing and entertaining. Others are cringing so hard they might pull a muscle, pointing out the low-quality visuals. Love it or hate it, people are talking about it. And isn't that the point of political advertising? Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the ethical implications of using AI in political messaging. Experts are raising red flags faster than a Labour MP at a policy debate. There's a growing concern about transparency and the potential for misinformation as this technology advances. Dominic Lees, an AI expert from the University of Reading, warns that while today's AI-generated images are easy to spot, tomorrow's might not be. He's calling for clear guidelines in political communication before we find ourselves in a deep fake dilemma. This AI-generated broadcast isn't just a quirky experiment, it's a significant moment in political communication. It's setting a precedent that could reshape how campaigns are run in the future. But as we marvel at the technology, we need to ask ourselves, are we opening Pandora's box? As we peel back the layers of this AI-generated critique, let's take a closer look at the specific Labour policies that Reform UK is taking aim at. Because behind the flashy visuals and movie trailer drama, there are real issues at stake, issues that are shaping the future of Britain.
Harriet, it's not just the Tories who have to be worried. Mr Farage is after Labour seats as well. And I think the number now was they came second in 89 seats to Labour.
I think today is an answer to that question in a way, because here we are 10 days past the mayoral election.
To real problems, which are not a solution and will just increase people's distrust and disillusionment.
Remember Labour's bold pledges on immigration control and economic revival. Fast forward to today, and the numbers tell a different story. How did Labour go from promising to slash illegal immigration to overseeing a surge of 20,000 arrivals? The answer might make you question everything you thought you knew about political promises. Labour swept into power with grand promises of tighter borders and economic stability. They painted a picture of a Britain on the brink, desperately in need of their steady hand. But But as we peel back the layers of their first 100 days in office, a different reality emerges. Let's talk immigration. Labour vowed to crack down on illegal entries, yet under their watch, we've seen a staggering influx of 20,000 migrants. Critics argue that instead of implementing stricter controls, Labour's offering a warm welcome with free accommodation and cash allowances. It's a far cry from the tough stance they promised on the campaign trail. But the contradictions don't stop there. Remember Labour's dire warnings about the state of the economy? You'd think the nation's piggy bank was running on empty, yet somehow they've found the funds for a 5.5% pay rise for public sector workers, more than double the inflation rate. It's a move that's raising eyebrows and questions about their fiscal responsibility. The public isn't blind to these inconsistencies. Support for Labour is crumbling faster than a sandcastle at high tide. Voters who once saw Labour as the answer to their prayers are now turning to opposition parties like Reform UK, who are all too happy to capitalize on Labour's missteps. But here's the kicker.
Is that they show a real fall in Labour's support. If you look at the percentage change, it's not just about who's won, but it's who's voting and what the percentage change is.
But in the budget, which was probably the toughest, I'm really pleased that we were able to put so much money into the National Health Service.
How worried should the party be about the threat, or the challenge, I should say, from Farage?
These aren't just short-term political blunders. Experts are sounding the alarm about the long-term consequences of Labour's actions. The combination of unchecked immigration and generous public sector spending could create a perfect storm of social and economic pressures. It's a recipe that could leave Britain's fiscal health in tatters. So what's the real story here? Labour's pre-election promises and their actions in office are as different as night and day. They promised control but delivered chaos. They cried poverty but spend like there's no tomorrow. It's a stark reminder that in politics, actions speak louder than words. As we grapple with these revelations, we're left wondering, in an age of AI-enhanced political messaging and shape-shifting policies, how can voters separate fact from fiction? It's a question that cuts to the heart of our democracy, and one we'll need to answer sooner rather than later. As we've seen, the landscape of political communication is shifting dramatically in the age of AI. Reform UK's AI-generated broadcast isn't just a novelty, it's a glimpse into a future where the lines between reality and digital creation blur. This new frontier raises critical questions about transparency and trust in our democratic process. It's more important than ever for voters to approach political messaging with a critical eye, regardless of party affiliation. We must ask ourselves, who's really behind these messages? What's being left unsaid? Are we seeing the full picture, or just a carefully crafted illusion? As AI-enhanced political advertising becomes more sophisticated, our democracy faces a critical juncture. Will we allow technology to further muddy the waters of political discourse, or will we demand greater transparency and accountability? The future of our democratic process may well depend on how we answer these questions.